different vials that are poured out, and these are the plagues, the last plagues that God is dumping out. And this definitely puts us right toward the end. And especially with this last one that we're going to discuss, because, man, it's the granddaddy of all plagues. And it says the seventh angel, verse 17, the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and there came a great voice out of the temple of heaven from the throne saying, "It is done." And we'll discuss all that. It says, and there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. Now, I did notice something. I was reading through this, and something jumped out at me that didn't jump out at me, when I was studying this thing through. When he says there, in the seventh angel poured out his vial into the air, and you get an earthquake. Every time there is a coronal mass ejection from the sun, you have a solar flare that sends all that energy to Earth, and it comes into our atmosphere, and it accumulates right around. A lot of times it accumulates at the poles. That's why you get the, what do they call that? The aurora borealis. The reason you get that is because all that energy is in the air, and it centralizes because of the magnetic poles. Well, right after that happens, which has just happened, folks, you start having earthquakes. And you had one in Japan, and you've had one some other places, because these things mess with the tectonic plates and the magnetism of our earth. And it's just interesting that it says there that they poured that vial into the air. And that's where all these particles come from, these coronal mass ejections from the sun, and that causes earthquakes to happen. Just a thought. I'm not saying God can't do it another way, but it's just kind of interesting that that's exactly what's happening right now with these things. And I had another X flare, a couple M flares, and another X flare, lower on the scale. But man, as these things continue to get bigger and bigger, you'll know. You'll get a warning, and they'll tell you. We may have brownouts, may have blackouts. You might have to worry about your electronics going dead on you, because this energy gets in the air and it just goes right for these modern, what do you call them? I'm sorry. Well, not only satellites, it can take out satellites, but everything's got a board in it, electronic board, and they just can't handle this energy that's in the air, and it fries the board. And there's nothing you can do, huh? Okay, kills the transistors. So the only thing you can do is if you've got what's that thing called? Faraday cage. You can make one out of a metal trash can or something like that, but, kind of look it up on the internet. If you want to guard your brain, or you could put on a tinfoil hat and just have your phone on the top of your, no, I'm just kidding. Anyway, that we haven't had anything really, there's been a few that have showed up, but none like the one that happened called the Carrington effect. If we get one like that, you'll know it. There'll be all kinds of things happening, bad things. Our grid is not hardened like it should be. And you get power stations, substations going down, you're looking at months to get it restored. Imagine, it's hard to imagine a couple of days without electricity. Can't imagine a couple of months without it. Anyway, going on. So he says there, verse 17, it is done. It's interesting, he says that a couple times, or at least one more time in the book of Revelation, but in this one it's about the wrath of God. It is done. And in Revelation 15:1, where this began, it says, I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, it says. For in them is filled up the wrath of God. And then in Revelation 16:1, it says, and I heard a great voice out of the temple saying to the 7 angels, go your ways and pour out the vials of the wrath of God upon the earth. Then he says at this last one, it is done. It's the last one. So 4 times do we find this thing in verse 18. It says, and there were voices and thunders and lightnings. 4 times in the book of Revelation, you find this. You find it in Revelation 4, verse 5. It said, now the throne proceeded lightnings and thunderings and voices, and there were 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of God. Then in Revelation 8:5, you find it again. And the angel took the censer and filled it with the fire of the altar and cast it unto the earth, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings and an earthquake. That kind of matches our text, doesn't it? And then in chapter 11, verse 19, it says, and the temple of God was opened in heaven, and there was seen in his temple the ark of his testament, and there were lightnings and voices and thunderings and an earthquake and great hail. And that really matches our text because hail is further down as we keep reading here. So what was interesting to me was 4 times you find that. Of course, the verse that we're at right now, that's the 4th one. 4 times you find it. But in the first one, in Revelation 4, verse 5, there's no earthquake or hail. And it's in relation to the church. It's in relation to John being caught up to the throne of God. And there's no earthquake and there's no hail. Because we are not appointed to wrath, but to obtain salvation. I thought that was interesting. All the others have the earthquake in it and great hail or great hail. So another interesting thing that I saw was the 6th seal has a great earthquake. That's Revelation 6:12. It says, I beheld when he had opened the 6th seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake. The sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. Then there's one under the trumpets. It's the 2nd woe. Remember, you get to is it the 7th trumpet? And he says there are 3 woes. This is the 2nd woe. Whoa. Anyway, Revelation 11:13, the same hour was there a great earthquake, and a 10th part of the city fell in the earthquake, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. So you've got one under the seals, you got one under the trumpets, and guess what? There's one under the vials. That's where we're at here, Revelation 16:18. And there were voices and thunders and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth, so mighty an earthquake and so great. The strongest earthquake ever recorded, now that's recorded, not that there wasn't one stronger, but the strongest one ever recorded happened in 1960, May 22nd, 3 days before I was born. I think I could feel the tremors. I think I remember that in the womb. What's going on here? Why is everything moving? Anyway, this was near Valdivia, Chile, is where this struck. There were massive tsunamis that struck Chile, Hawaii, Japan, and the Philippines, and even the U.S. West Coast. Widespread destruction in southern Chile estimated 1,000 to 6,000 deaths. That's a pretty broad range there, but there's some other extremely large earthquakes for comparison. 1964, the Alaska earthquake, magnitude 9.2. 2004 in Sumatra, there was an earthquake of 9.1 to 9.3. And in 2011, the Tohoku, Japan earthquake of 9.0. Now, what I understand about earthquakes, depth really matters. You can have a 7.2, but if it's closer to the surface, it can cause a lot of damage. And you can have a 9.0, if it's real deep, you won't have as much. So it does matter where the depth of that thing is that's shaking things. Let's see here. Look at Isaiah chapter 24. There's a passage in the Old Testament about this. Isaiah 24, verse 17. We'll start there. We're going to read a few verses here. And it says, Isaiah 24:17, fear and the pit and the snare are upon thee, O inhabitant of the earth. That's kind of includes everybody there, doesn't it? And it shall come to pass that he who fleeth from the noise of the fear shall fall into the pit. He that cometh up out of the midst of the pit shall be taken in the snare, for the windows from on high are open. And that's very interesting, because in every one of these cases, there's usually hail involved. And the windows of heaven are open. And it says, and the foundations of the earth do shake. Now, you know what actually moves and shakes in the earth? It's the tectonic plates. That could be your foundations that he's talking about. Because that's the things that are moving and rubbing together and shifting and everything like that. And it says there in verse 19, and the earth is utterly broken down, the earth is clean dissolved, the earth is moved exceedingly. So this is going to do some serious damage and overhaul to this world. In fact, we're going to read it on down through here in a minute. It says, the earth shall reel to and fro like a drunkard. I mean, it's like nothing this world's ever. You can't imagine the whole earth shaking all at once. And shall be removed like a cottage. Don't quite understand that, but. And it says, and the transgression thereof shall be heavy upon it, and it shall fall and not rise again. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall punish the host of the high ones that are on high, and the kings of the earth upon the earth. It's interesting that we're going to have some high ones that are on high going to be on the earth. And they're working with the kings of the earth. And they shall be gathered together as prisoners are gathered in the pit, and shall be shut up in the prison, and after many days shall they be visited. Now that was interesting to me, because it almost insinuates that it's going to be more than just Satan being cast into the pit for 1,000 years. That there might be some high ones that are on high that are in there with him. Or maybe some kings of the earth. Remember, there's 10 kings involved. That would be something, if they let him out for a season, having all them going forth over all the earth to deceive. It says, then the moon shall be confounded, the sun ashamed, when the Lord of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, and before his ancients gloriously. So, you're prophesies about this thing in the Old Testament. Look at verse 19, Revelation 16:19. It says, and the great city was divided into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And great Babylon came in remembrance before God to give unto her the cup of the wine of the fierceness of his wrath. Now, from what I can read from different commentators, they're trying to say that the great city is in reference to Babylon. Well, it can also refer to Jerusalem. In fact, after I ran as many references as I could, it almost looks to me like he's referring to 3 different places here. The great city, Jerusalem, the cities of the nations, and Great Babylon. And I'll tell you why. Give me a couple verses here. In Romans 11, verse 8, Revelation 11, verse 8, not Romans. Revelation 11, 8. And he's talking about Moses and Elijah when they've been beheaded. And it says, and their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where our Lord was crucified. Where was he crucified? Jerusalem. Now, at this point, God's considering Jerusalem like Sodom and Egypt, but he's spiritually calling them that. But he says, the great city. Do you know that it never says that about Babylon? It either says that great city or this great city, never the great city. I know we're parsing words here, but look at Revelation 11, verse 13. Now remember, verse 8, we're talking about the great city, which is Jerusalem. And it says, and the same hour there was a great earthquake, and the 10th part of the city fell. Now, one thing about Babylon, the whole thing's toast. Not just a 10th part of it. He destroys the whole place. It says, and in the earthquake were slain of men 7,000, and the remnant were affrighted and gave glory to the God of heaven. Like, that, even though you have this great earthquake, it does affect Jerusalem to some degree. And to that degree, there's loss of life. Who knows? Gentiles might still be there, maybe killed 7,000 Gentiles. I don't know. But it says the remnant were affrighted about it. Now, here's something else. Remember, we're right toward the end. We are right at the end. We are right just prior to the Advent. This is just preceding it. And guess what happens just preceding the Advent? Zechariah 14:4. Zechariah 14:4 says, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives. Now, the Mount of Olives is just one valley away. You can leave the temple, go down right into the valley, the Kidron Valley, and right up into the Mount of Olives. From the temple, you can see the Mount of Olives. There's a bunch of grave sites and everything on that mount, but it's right there. And it says that his feet shall stand that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst. It's going to split in two. Thereof toward the east and toward the west, and there shall be a very great valley. And half of the mountain shall move toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And he talks about in verse 19, and the great city was divided into three parts. Well, you got the Kidron, and then if the mountain itself cleaves, I don't know. It just looks to me like that could be where the Lord separates that thing into three different parts. And I think he's splitting the Mount of Olives because the remnant are going to go within that, the protection of inside. He's going to create a valley for them. They're going to go in there, and it's going to be a protection for them because he's wiping out everything north of there. His armies are headed toward Megiddo, Armageddon, and he's just making his way up there, but he's got to do something with the remnant he's just rescued. So he puts them inside the Mount of Olives, and that's really what it says that he does. And he just goes on north with his armies, and he just wipes out everything that breathes. And they're protected. 7 times Babylon is referred to as that great city or this great city. Now, that statement up there is followed by all 7 references of that about Babylon. So I'm not going to tell you that I absolutely got it right, because I don't know for sure. But the one thing I know about Babylon is the whole thing's on fire and probably radioactive. I think it gets nuked. In fact, I'm pretty much sure of that. If you look at the description, it talks about they're in ships, and remember, the way Rome sits, it sits down in the Mediterranean. So these ships are going to be able to see what's going on, and they see the smoke come up, like a mushroom cloud. They see it coming up, and they know they can't get in there. They can't get near it, it says. We'll get to all this when we get to Revelation 17 and 18. And it's referred to, as that great city, but it's not the great city. So, okay, we'll see. The cities, then it says there, the cities of the nations fell. Now, I asked AI, and I only do this for fun. I check everything AI tells me. I don't believe a word they tell me. If he tells me the sun's shining, I'm going to walk outside and take a look. Because I've had them lie right to my face. Catch them in it, and they're just like, yeah. What do you mean, yeah? Anyway, I said, calculate what it would take and what would be the level of an earthquake to shake the whole earth. Couldn't do it. In fact, AI can't even fathom it. Cannot fathom the power or the strength it would take to cause that. It says it can't happen. Brother, if God says it can happen, it can happen. If it says he's going to shake the whole... Listen, we're talking about all the cities of the nations fell. Every city you can imagine, all the cities fall. They collapse. There's not a major city on earth that's standing. I think anything with more than a couple stories is going to fall right to the ground. God devastates this entire world. It's got to be, listen, when he comes back, it has completely have to be rebuilt. If your structure hasn't burned because he scorched it with the sun, He's leveling it with an earthquake. Or it's got leprosy in it. I am telling you, man, you know, I love it when, you know, we see this world, they talk about the environmental issues. We have to preserve the environment. We have to save it for our, you know. God's going to do everything to destroy the environment because he knows that's your gods. He knows that's the gods of this world and he destroys it. Now, he's going to come and clean it up. And what he can do in one day, the EPA can't do in a millennium. But he just lets you know it's not about the environment, it's about me. And you're wasting your time. You know, that's just to get you off on anything but God. Anything. They don't care what. The devil doesn't care what rut you get stuck in. He doesn't. As long as he gets you in one. Doesn't matter what it is. It can even be religion. But if he can get you stuck in it, man, and it says the cities of the nations fell from this earthquake. And then in verse 20 it says, and every island fled away, and the mountains were not found. So two things there. All right, islands. Well, there are 21,818 islands that are at least 1 square kilometer. What's a kilometer? About half a mile? Something like that. It's how many kilometers does it take to make a mile? Huh? 1.6? So, yeah, 2/3, 3/5, I don't know. 0.6 mile. So it's not, I mean, we're getting down to pretty small. If you count everything where there's a rock sticking out of the, out of the water, you could be looking at millions of islands. But 21,818 islands, and they're gone. They're flown away. Some of the largest would include Australia. So what's a continent? It's a continent island. Greenland, New Guinea, the Japanese islands, Japan, Great Britain. That's an island nation. So that's just a few. There are quite a few. Could be. I mean, there's a Alaskan island. I mean, there's all kind of places. I don't know about Alaska, but there's islands everywhere. And he says all these islands. It says that every island fled away. That means it just shook them and they just disappeared. Tsunami. I mean, if he's shaking this thing like I think he's shaking, it'd be like being in a washing machine. But then he mentions, and the mountains were not found. Do you know how many mountains there are? Hey, I don't know either. They can't count them all. There are about 1,500 mountain ranges. 1,500. With mountains in the millions. I'm going to say some people think a mountain, is a molehill, but some of the largest would include the Andes, the Himalayas, the Rockies, the Trans-Antarctic Mountains. I guess they got some big ones in Antarctica. And the Great Dividing Range in Australia that practically divides the country in half. I mean, these are huge, humongous mountain ranges. And what's interesting to me, and I thought about this, I thought, man, we're going to lose all these islands and all this ground. And hold it now. Maybe we'll make it all up when he flattens all the mountains out. Think of that. I mean, you think about all the area you can't go live in because there's nothing but mountains. I mean, it might be maybe you're Jeremiah Johnson, or something, and you can go live, but most people can't live in a mountain, and especially a very high mountain. But imagine if it's all leveled. There's no mountains left. You say, why would he do that? Well, there's some other reasons why. Remember, God can take a curse and turn it into a blessing. He can also take a blessing and turn it into a curse. But in this case, he's done this, man, and he has leveled everything. There are no mountain ranges. That means there's plenty of places to live now. Plenty of homesteads, but there's something else. It's very possible that, not only do we gain all the lost area from where the islands were, but we gain some wealth. In Job 28, verse 9 and 10, there's this verse, and it's interesting that this happens, that he levels all the mountain ranges. And it says, he putteth forth his hand upon the rock, he overturneth the mountains by the roots. He cutteth out rivers among the rocks, and his eye seeth every precious thing. You know that if that's the case, imagine in the millennium we think, well, all the gold has been they've already gotten all the gold, and boy, the silver, you can't find too much more. What if most of it is under these huge mountain ranges? Because that's what it insinuates. The Lord knows where all the precious metals are. He knows where all the gems of the earth are. And you know what he's going to do? He's just going to unearth it for you. I mean, you can't, just to dig through a mountain it takes decades, and all you put to do is a little hole through it. Maybe a train can go through it. Well, imagine what's under that mountain range that you cannot get to because you can't survive it. You can't mine it. Next thing you know, it's flat, and now all of a sudden you got perfect weather. It's 72 degrees in the daytime. Wouldn't that be something? It won't be something for these folks that are witnessing it because they're watching their whole world fall down, and this is just before the Advent. And then, if that ain't bad enough, okay, you got this horrendous earthquake of what magnitude, who knows? And then every island fled away, the mountains are gone, and then verse 21, and there fell upon men a great hail out of heaven, every stone about the weight of a talent. Okay, so if you go and try to find out what a talent is, you're going to get a different ballpark figure, but it is between 75 and 80 pounds. 75 and 80 pounds. It's about 3,000 shekels. And 3,000 of those shekels weighs about 75 or 80 pounds. That is one big hailstone. I tried to find out what the biggest hailstone there was. And believe it or not, in South Dakota. Now, I got some I had some information before when I taught Revelation. And, people just out and out lie to you. But you can kind of verify things now. And they couldn't verify any of the information that I had. This one I got verified. South Dakota in July of 2010 holds the record. Who knew? It's the largest documented hailstone of about 2 pounds. 2. Now, if you want to know what that is, everybody have a softener at your house? And you're going out and you're buying 40 pounds of salt. You know how heavy those are? How many of you handle 2 of them one time? You men, I know you do. Okay. Put those 2 bags together and that drops on you or on your house. 40 pounds, man, is still, I used to go get the 80 pounders because I'm cheap. Okay. Now my back says go to 40 because back surgery costs a lot more than those 80 pound or 40 pound bags. But I used to get the 80s, and an 80 pound bag. Listen, if it hits your house, it'll be in the basement. It'll go right. It may even go through your basement floor, create a crater. Huh? Yeah. You definitely have a crawl space. But you can't, 80 pounds, you can't imagine that. When the record's only 2. It will destroy any structure it hits. It would take out a high rise. I don't know how many floors it would go through, but you're talking, I don't know what would be traveling at over 100 miles per hour. Yep. In, was it 74? When the Xenia tornado, was it 74? Xenia tornado? We had baseballs hit our house, and my dad had one of those pop-up campers, holes right through it, man. And they were as big as baseballs. And I remember, I'll never forget that sky. It was lime green. Never forget that, man. And I was 14 years old. And here it come, man. We like, get in the house. I mean, because if you got hit by one of them, it'd knock you out. Man. And the car damage, I mean, it'd break your windshield, put dents in your car. Like, I'm telling you, and you can't, 80 pounds, it'll put your car down in the sewer, 80 pounds will. It'll knock you right down through the asphalt. All right, let's see. Joshua chapter 10. Well, I'm almost done here. We'll get done early. We'll get done on time. Joshua chapter 10. Verse 8. Read a few verses here. So the Lord said unto Joshua, fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hand, and there shall not a man of them stand before thee. And Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly and went up from Gilgal all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Beth Horon, and smote them to Azekah, I guess, and into Magadah. And it came to pass as they fled from before Israel, and were in the going down to Beth Horon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them from Azekah, and they died. And they were more which died with hailstones than they which the children of Israel slew with the sword. Let's see. Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley of Ajalon. So same time frame. So you know what's going to happen here, don't you? You know, Joshua is the name for Jesus in the Old Testament. And you have this attack going on. Not only killed him with hailstones just before, but then Joshua and his armies have an extended day to wipe out their enemies. Because Jesus is going to say, son, stand thou still. And go after. So, you know, it could be a long day, man. A day with no night. And you got these hailstones coming down. A couple other verses. Well, here's one that's interesting. You know what's happening at this time when these hailstones finally come down? They're blaspheming. We've read it, right? It says they blaspheme the God of heaven. Leviticus 24:16 says, and he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death, and all the congregation shall certainly stone him. As well the stranger as he that is born in the land, when he blasphemeth the name of the Lord, shall he be put to death. So you know what the Lord does when they blaspheme him? He stones them. 80-pounders. Lord's got a big arm. I mean, you can't imagine something coming at you, 80 pounds, man, coming out of the heavens. Whew. Psalm 18:13, the Lord also thundered in the heavens, and the highest gave his voice, hailstones and coals of fire. That's Psalm 18:13. So here's what we got. We got this last set, man, it's a doozy. We got the plague of leprosy. All the fresh waters turned to blood. You got the sun scorching men. Then it turns to darkness, which envelops the earth. You got world war against Israel. You have the greatest earthquake ever. And you got 80-pound hailstones pelting the earth. And you know what they do? They continue to blaspheme. And they will not repent. So that's when the Lord comes and wipes them out. I mean, he does give them a chance. And don't think, that, well, they didn't know. They know. They know. The whole world knows. You've got God's Spirit convicting people of their sin. And convicting them that they haven't believed on God. They get this conviction. And what they do with it is they just keep putting it aside. They keep salving their conscience. They'll get some religion. They'll get something else. Anything but face God over their sin. The problem with the Lord is the Lord's not going to deal with you till he deals with your sin. That's the first thing. So whenever God's dealing with a lost man, he may be answering the man's prayer, but it's only to get that man to come to Jesus Christ, because that's where it begins. It's just like that. The tabernacle back there. The minute you walk through the gate of that tabernacle, there was an altar, a 5x5 altar with fire, and it pictured hell and something being sacrificed because of sin. And the Lord's not going to let you go any further, because you got to get in that tabernacle where you can have fellowship with God, where you got prayers and you got the showbread, which pictures the Word of God, and then you've got the Holy of Holies where you actually get to fellowship with God. You can't get past that altar until you deal with your sins to go in and fellowship with God, and that's where it begins. Okay, I think I'm covered chapter 16. 17 and 18 will be good. It's not, I can tell you this, that 17 and 18 is not palatable to the world, because it reveals another church, another religion, false apostles, false servants, false preachers. I mean, it reveals those things. It's probably two of the most instructing chapters in the book of Revelation for a Christian in this age. Okay, anybody got a question or comment about what we covered? Okay.